MGS1 is a masterpiece because of, quite simply, how it made one of the biggest impacts in video game history by being the first noticeable game that successfully combined an action game with a cinematic story that made it feel like you were watching a giant movie that you never wanted to end. But it didn't just give us cutscenes and a story, no. It dialed that drama and action up to an unnecessary 11 to kick the out of all your emotions. And those moments, those scenes, made even more of an impact due to the fact the game wasn't designed to be a bang bang brainless shooter. No, it was designed with tactical espionage action in mind, to progress using your intelligence rather than spray bullets in all directions like Rambo. With stealth and a quiet atmosphere, we're your closest allies through the mission more than the codec. So when the action did heat up, we really felt the tension, and as long as you played on normal or above for your first playthrough, you believed you were going to die if you made one wrong move. From intense boss fights to a wild rollercoaster ride of twists, Metal Gear Solid was the complete package for a video game and a cinematic experience, and it can easily be one of, if not the best game on the PlayStation 1, but without a doubt, one of the greatest games that has ever existed. But what makes Metal Gear Solid a masterpiece more than its own concept, execution, and legacy is something far more important that should be very obvious, but it's something that's never flat out said at all. And I'm gonna make it perfectly clear in this video. What makes MGS1 a masterpiece are the characters. From Solid Snake to Grey Fox, each of these flawed characters have their own interesting backstory. There is something about each character that each of us as fans can connect with, and they are all so different in design and concept, yet are all so similar in the sense that each have a goal and are fighting for something during the Shadow Moses story. I will take you through the unique characters of Metal Gear Solid 1 and explore their personalities, history, and importance to the game of Metal Gear Solid 1. Because without this perfect specific casting of heroes and villains to this story, from the wacky members of Foxhound all the way to codec support Mei Ling, then this game would never have been a success.
It's been a long time, Snake.
Solid Snake, one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. Explaining Solid Snake's character in depth will take hours of video time, so to start off this series, we will begin by exploring Solid Snake's character in the first Metal Gear Solid game on the PlayStation 1. Don't worry, in future videos we will look at every Metal Gear game, and the characters in them.
See you there.
Now, Solid Snake is not your everyday hero. He doesn't even think he's a hero.
I'm just an old killer, hired to do some wet work.
Now, despite being the main protagonist of the game and being referred to as this legendary hero, he is indeed just there to kill the bad guys. Unless you want the highest score at the end of the game by keeping your kills low, and there's no tranquilizer gun in this game, so good luck with that. Either way, Solid Snake is the man who makes the impossible possible. The amount of uphill battles in this game, it is relentless. He is against the odds all of the time. We eventually find out his real name is David.
Master, what's going on?
Blue eyes, brown hair, height ranges from 5'10" to 6 foot depending on which source material you read, and he also weighs around 75 kilograms. Snake has a badass battlefield track record. Being a hardened career soldier, he displays a calm and collected aura, able to control his anger or fear in extreme circumstances, but by burying his emotions deep inside, it causes him to shut people out in the world and appear incredibly rude. However, Solid Snake has more of a human side than just about anyone in the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and we gradually see this side of him open up as the games progress. Now, during the events of the Metal Gear Solid game, which is based in the year 2005, Snake would be enjoying times of peace in Alaska, where he became a dog sled racer, and a peaceful way of living to forget his war-torn past. However, it's during this time, everything changes when his former commander, Roy Campbell, sent armed soldiers to recruit Snake and bring him in to stop a rebellion taking place on Shadow Moses Island, led by rogue members of Foxhound, who would threaten the US with a nuclear strike if they don't get the remains of Big Boss. There's a lot to talk about in the first Metal Gear Solid game, but we'll keep it simple here. Snake and Campbell go a long way back, so he would naturally take up this assignment, and because he trusts Campbell. Initially. As the events unfold, there is a lot of information held back from Snake. There is a lot of trust issues that take place during this mission, and he eventually feels like a grunt being used for this bigger picture of power and greed. Snake initially has long hair, and we see this in the briefing, which I used to watch so many times by the way, but after he sees what the Foxhound Rebellion leader looked like, he decided to cut it short so he's not mistaken for him. Yes, good old Liquid Snake.
Liquid Snake?
Yes.
Snake infiltrated the base on Shadow Moses Island alone, but quickly gained help from the Metal Gear Rex developer Hal Emmerich and the new Foxhound recruit Meryl Silverberg, Campbell's niece. However, the big twist in this game is when Snake gets screwed over by Master Miller. I mean,
Liquid Snake.
Liquid Snake.
Me, dear brother. Liquid. How the...
probably the best video game twist in history, by the way.
Shut up.
The all-walking battle tank is back, stronger and more advanced than ever, but Snake succeeds in destroying Rex. With the 12 rocket launchers he has on his back, he indeed is a carrier boy.
That's right, carrier boy.
Talking about guns and ammo, after completing the game you either get the bandana for unlimited ammo or the stealth camouflage, which gives this game so much replay value, I tell you. That all depends on what you do in the torture.
Can you take one more? Let's see what kind of man you really are.
Man, it still haunts me now. Now, just before the final battle between Snake and Liquid, yeah, Snake's called Snake and Liquid's called Liquid. Why not call him Solid? Marketing! Liquid taunts Snake with the knowledge that he had killed many of his brothers in the Next Generation Special Forces, who, like Snake and Liquid, had been experimented on to replicate Big Boss's genes. The greatest soldier that ever lived. Snake soon learned that the mission had been plotted and prepared by the Pentagon. Through the secret Pentagon-guided efforts of genetic engineer Naomi Hunter, Snake's body had become host to the artificial virus FoxDie, where during briefing, Naomi gave Snake a quick shot, if you know what I mean. Snake was outraged to hear that this mission was a government conspiracy, and that he was merely sent as a carrier of the virus, which was programmed to kill Baker, who knew too much about the project, and Snake thought he was there to save him. Snake is a great protagonist, because all the shocks and surprises we see through Snake, his reactions are our reactions. And throughout the incident, Snake suspected that Campbell was concealing important information regarding the mission's true nature, but he later forgave Campbell after learning that the Pentagon had used Meryl as leverage in order to force him to cooperate with them. One of the most interesting relationships during this game is between Solid Snake and Grey Fox. Snake described Grey Fox as his best friend, and the only man ever to earn the codename Fox. Fox took on a mentor role in Snake's life, showed him the ropes. But despite the past history where Fox betrayed Snake in Zanzibar Land years ago, he held no anger towards Fox, seeing it as both being soldiers doing their job. And after all this time, he still considered Fox as his friend, which surprised Naomi Hunter. During the Shadow Moses incident, we learned that Fox had survived the injuries and became a cyborg ninja. And during the final battle with Rex, when Grey Fox would sacrifice himself, Snake contemplated destroying Rex and killing Liquid at the cost of Fox's life, but he could not go through with it. Grey Fox's final words had a deep impact on Snake's personal beliefs from there.
Snake, we're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was good at. But at least I always fought for what I believed in.
Snake discovered that Naomi was the foster sister of Grey Fox, who desired revenge for what Snake had done to her brother, and she modified the FoxDie virus so that it would kill him in addition to Foxhound. However, she set the virus to a wildcard value, leaving him vulnerable at a later time, and just told Snake to live. No matter how much time he's got left, just live. She was torn up over Grey Fox. Frank Yeager. At the end of the game, to enable Snake some peace, Campbell reported Snake died with his Jeep as it sank into the ocean. Depending on what you do with the torture chapter, you either ride off with Meryl or Otacon. But man, if you do submit that torture and you see Meryl die, I tear up when I see Snake sad at Meryl's death. Man, that one hits. Probably more than Sniper Wolf's death. Spoiler, damn it! Ruined a future video. If this was the first Metal Gear game you played, you learned that Snake was the son of Big Boss and that he killed him years ago, but Snake was born with a flawed recessive genes. Yet he was able to defeat Liquid Snake, who had the dominant genes. All along, Liquid thought it was the other way around. And the ultimate message of this game:
you mustn't allow yourself to be chained to fate, to be ruled by your genes. Humans can choose the type of life they want to live.
One of my favorite Solid Snake quotes that applies to that in some shape. It's after he defeats Psycho Mantis. He says,
"The strong man doesn't need to read the future. He makes his own."
Snake, answer me! Snake! Snake!
good old Otacon, Hal Emmerich. One of the most popular characters in the Metal Gear franchise, and without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most important. What Otacon cannot do on the battlefield, Snake can. What Snake cannot do, Otacon can. That's why they make the perfect team. In Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1, Otacon is known as being the chief engineer of Metal Gear Rex. During the events of Shadow Moses, Solid Snake rescued him, and ever since then they became close friends.
Huh?
You feel okay? Nothing bothering you?
What's wrong? Getting all friendly all of a sudden.
However, sometime before that happened, Hal was held hostage by the Sons of Big Boss on Shadow Moses, forced to continue his work on Rex. A very intelligent yet selfless individual whose own naive nature and good ambitions caused the entire plot of Metal Gear Solid 1, and in turn, 2 and 4. Now, first impressions are typically lasting impressions, and when we first see Otacon, apart from when you hug the wall of his lab and spot him, we initially see Otacon losing full control of his bladder and retreating into a locker. But Otacon gets a pass on this if you ask me. Not only is he being confronted by the most badass cyborg ninja of all time, but Otacon does indeed grow from here, more than people realize. Solid Snake and Otacon bring out the best in each other. When you're initially introduced to Snake as this stern soldier, Snake begins to open up as the more approachable Snake we see in Metal Gear Solid 2 and onwards. He's more chilled from there on than he is in Metal Gear Solid 1. The more he is exposed to Otacon's emotional side and conversation, the more Snake escapes from being just a miserable grunt. The same goes for Otacon. Otacon becomes far more courageous in his actions, and the sight of battle doesn't scare him as much later on. He kind of brushes it off and continues whatever mission he's on. One of Otacon's biggest changes comes from his naive self realizing what his creation of Metal Gear Rex was being used for. Wanting to use his science to help mankind, it only attracted power, greed, and hell. Like the real world, where Hideo Kojima is an absolute genius for basing pretty much all of his Metal Gear plots on real world situations. Anyway, this realization is what drives Otacon to help Snake on the mission to stopping the terrorists, and his own project. I do like the warm moment when Snake shows care for Otacon's health, when he didn't suddenly drop dead from Foxdie like previous people he's come in contact with. Otacon was caught off guard with that care and nature from Snake, just like we all were. In terms of inventions, just like Rex, Otacon's stealth camo is what he's known most for in Metal Gear Solid. Sneaking around the base, keeping up with Snake by hitching rides with the enemy undetected. We have to remember, Hal is not any kind of super soldier, and pretty much any knowledge of battle before meeting Snake came from watching his animated shows, which was an inspiration to create big robots. When it's all real, it's a different story, and we see this clear. We see him freak out over the dead DARPA chief, as well as his lack of confidence for any physical encounter. Snake realizing this when he's captured. Otacon turns up at the cell door, and Snake expects Otacon to simply take out the guard and get the key. Otacon tells Snake there's no chance in hell. He was pissing his pants all over again. He would get killed, even with stealth camo. That's a key moment of realization for Snake, and us as the audience, that it's not that simple. Otacon is just a normal guy. These soldiers are next generation special forces. And I like that about Otacon, in how he kept it grounded in terms of how regular people would act. But the prison scene gives us a great Otacon moment, the good old catch-up escape method. I absolutely love that and would always use this way to escape more than hiding under the bed or wait for Grey Fox to break you out. Every time I hid under the bed, I'd never get up in time to punch the guard, he'd hit me back down. Anyway, it's when Snake blows up tanks, encounters the Hind D, that's when Otacon starts seeing Snake as a legendary hero. We get the classic Otacon close-up crazy codec moment when he realizes the guards had stole the other stealth camo devices.
Look out, Snake! The guys who stole my stealth prototypes are in there with you!
Too late, Snake. Now die.
They're all in the elevator ambushing Snake. Realizing this, my heart rate soared higher than Snake's when he ran the communication tower stairs. I'll never forget that first time I got jumped in that elevator. Great times. This is why Metal Gear Solid is an amazing game. It has so many awesome first time moments. I always wished Otacon had given Snake the stealth camo when he first met him in the lab though. Now let us look at the most interesting relationship, which is between Otacon and Sniper Wolf. During his time as a hostage, he became attracted to Wolf. Snake would insist this was Stockholm Syndrome. And let's be honest, an attractive terrorist clawing at your chest with that accent.
Snake, I'm near. Can't you sense me near you?
It's a mistake for a sniper to reveal our location.
Is that right? Well, I'm going to send you a love letter, my dear.
Otacon crumbled at first glance. I kinda get why Hal wanted to tap that. Everything appears smooth in the game, that is until Meryl gets shot, and you need to get hold of a sniper rifle to fight back against Wolf. It's at this time you start to realize Otacon has feelings for the enemy sniper, and doesn't provide you with as much assistance as you need. He doesn't betray you, but he doesn't help you against her either. During Snake's imprisonment, you also get Sniper Wolf's handkerchief, which was another sign of Otacon's love for Wolf. Since Since the handkerchief carried wolf scent, Snake was able to avoid being attacked by the resident wolf dogs, as long as you have it equipped. Otherwise, you gotta get the puppy to piss on the box, ruining Old Faithful.
Do you think love can bloom, even on a battlefield?
No!
Probably the deepest conversation between Otacon and Snake that actually formed a bond between them. But how does this link to Sniper Wolf? After the takeover of Shadow Moses, the terrorists planned on killing all the wolves that were in the area. Sniper Wolf said no, and let Otacon help feed the wolves. They would do so together, and he tells Snake that she was actually really nice to him, and that's how he developed the crush on her. Though it's explained shortly after that, Sniper Wolf sometimes obsesses over her targets, to the point where she'd even fall in love with them before she kills them. But would that have happened to Otacon as well? It depends if she viewed Otacon as a target. We only get confirmation of their relationship from Otacon. In my opinion, Wolf never had feelings of love for Otacon. She may have sort of respected him and had a small friendship with him, thinking he's a kind man, but didn't develop such deep feeling. Her attraction towards Snake was far more apparent, calling him handsome in the interrogation room, hugs him almost as if she was going to kiss him, and in the Twin Snakes cutscene of the interrogation, right after Liquid leaves, she feels him up big time. She didn't do none of that to Hal, unless there's some deleted scene in the lab somewhere, if you know what I mean. But even Snake thinks love can bloom on a battlefield, and maybe Otacon really was in love with Wolf. But even if Sniper Wolf had feelings for Otacon, it was never going to work out. Otacon being all alone in that place and under a lot of stress, probably attracted to her looks, thinks he's in love with her. Wolf most likely felt little if nothing of that towards him, just a common misunderstanding. Distraught that Snake would have to kill Wolf following a snowfield duel, Hal eventually came to terms with Wolf, himself, and his position in life. Afterwards, he vowed to continue helping with Snake's mission, although he didn't answer radio calls for a short time during his grieving of Wolf's death. Snake later returned the handkerchief to its original owner, placing it over Sniper Wolf's face shortly after her death at his hands, saying he no longer has tears to shed. This would be the first of many deaths in the series that causes trauma for Otacon. He would have a hard time coping, and you could tell this as the games progressed. He was filled with sadness, and it really was Solid Snake being that one person in his life who helped keep him going. But most of Otacon's toughness comes from himself and overcoming his own fears and sadness. Otacon helped Snake understand how to use the PAL system, which resulted in the shocking discovery that you already had all 3 keys in one in order to stop the launch of Metal Gear Rex. It would just change shape depending on the temperature of the card, room temperature, hot and cold, which was an amazing feature to the Metal Gear Solid game. If you take too long running from the blast furnace, the cold warehouse temperature would knock it back to room temperature. You had to move fast. Otacon is further responsible for helping Snake escape the gas-filled control room after Liquid screwed over Snake pretending to be Master Miller. Otacon is actually so important. Without him, Snake would have been killed almost 4 or 5 times already. But it doesn't stop there. He gives Snake all of the weaknesses of Rex and how to destroy it, stopping the uprising. And it doesn't end there for the heroic, useful Otacon. Hal decided to remain in the base to aid Snake in his escape. He disabled the security lock for the loading tunnel that led outside, nearly sacrificing himself in the process in order to help Solid Snake and Meryl escape. After the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, Otacon and Snake founded the anti-Metal Gear organization known as Philanthropy, but that part of Otacon's life we will discuss later, as right now I think it's time to give a quick nod to one of the most overshadowed characters of Metal Gear Solid 1, but one who held great importance to the plot and Snake's life, and provided a stability of enjoyment to the entire story, where we could appreciate his presence breaking up the gunfights with his technical conversations, over the codec or in person.
Snake! What was she fighting for? What am I fighting for? What are you fighting for?
If we make it through this, I'll tell you.
Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
Gray Fox, the most badass, coolest character in video game history. I don't care what you say. Although Solid Snake is my favorite, he's not the coolest. And believe me now, if you were there in the late 90s seeing this cyborg ninja for the first time, you know exactly what intense feelings I'm talking about. When you're infiltrating a base thinking it's this realistic grounded mission, all of a sudden, a full body optic stealth camouflage cyborg ninja rocks up out of nowhere, and you continuously question how your head hasn't been removed already. It's like something out of your Japanese animes. Gray Fox, real name Frank Yeager, was a mercenary and former agent of US Special Forces Unit Foxhound. Originally a child soldier, Yeager was the only operative in Foxhound to achieve the codename Fox. Fox was Solid Snake's comrade in arms and friend during the Outer Heaven uprising years ago, but his loyalty to Big Boss forced him to combat with Snake during the Zanzibar land disturbance. He survived his injuries following an intense battle with Snake and being blown up by a landmine, after which he was secretly recovered by the Patriots and forcibly outfitted with a powered-up exoskeleton and subjected to intensive gene therapy. He was literally a lab rat for 4 years under Dr. Clark, using nanomachines to suppress his emotions, hence why he always thought he was losing himself. But it wasn't until Fox's adopted sister Naomi Hunter joined Foxhound as Dr. Clark's assistant that she helped Fox escape containment 2 years before Shadow Moses, where Naomi covered up Fox killing Dr. Clark as just a lab accident. Fox had actually been used to kill Clark by Big Mama, who had previously recruited Naomi into her organization as part of a power struggle between opposing factions of the Patriots. Naomi then falsely reported Fox's death during the supposed accident and helped him hide out. However, the entire ordeal had left Fox's mind unstable, causing a rapid deterioration of identity. Let's talk about design. That cyborg helmet, almost looking like a troll face, but terrifying and cool at the same time. The red light, and oh my god, it opens up to see the injured Frank Yeager underneath. Seriously, Gray Fox is the embodiment of an anti-hero, but always fought for what he believed in. See what I did there? Although he does lean more towards being a hero in the bigger picture. Now, in simple terms, Gray Fox is on Shadow Moses Island with a desire to face Solid Snake in combat one more time. So he is technically another intruder on the Shadow Moses base. And we first get wind of this other intruder besides Snake after you hear a couple of guards talking about their murdered comrades. But the ninja comes out of hiding during your first battle with Revolver Ocelot, taking the cowboy's right hand with his high-frequency blade. During this moment, Fox was ready to fight Snake, but due to suffering from extremely painful electrical twitches, Fox retreats. Fox would then anonymously help Snake through the codec under the name Deep Throat. Yeah, like the guy from Watergate. But it was a nod to Operation Intrude F-014. Firstly, helping Snake get past the Claymore Mine battlefield, and then the electrified flooring in the nuclear warhead storage building. When we go to Otacons's lab, we get the most spine-chilling scene in history. You know it's him. Stealth camouflage activated, ninja blade, tons of dead soldiers, the hallway of hell.
Looks like they were cut by some type of blade.
I'll never forget that moment. My eyes opened as wide as they could go. Hearing that bizarre Gray Fox chant in the background as well. That scene was when Fox was at his most badass. The peak Fox moment, in my opinion. Now, in terms of the comparison of Gray Fox's voice in Metal Gear Solid 1 and the Twin Snakes, I'll always prefer Greg Eagles over Rob Paulson. The original Gray Fox voice was absolutely legendary, and I don't care which one you're a fan of, the original Metal Gear Solid 1 voices and soundtrack will always hit the hardest for me. Next up, we get something just as awesome as the Hallway of Hell. That's Snake versus Fox, challenging Snake to a fight, because that's the way his soul could finally find respite, is through a fight to the death.
To the death with you. Only in that can my soul find respite. Now, make me feel it. Make me feel alive again.
So many one-liners. You can see why Fox is one of, if not the most popular character in the Metal Gear Solid franchise. His abilities render your bullets ineffective unless you spam chaff grenades and then shoot him, to which you get some interesting dialogue insinuating you're a coward. Towards the end of the battle, Snake realized who this ninja was. The ninja twitches and retreats again after mentioning something about the medicine and that he's losing himself, and Naomi comes clean about the past of this ninja. Obviously, not everything such as a relationship to Fox, but enough to know what the hell happened to Frank Yeager. The great thing about this fist fight here is that even if you didn't play the previous Metal Gear games, you now felt like you were up to date. You knew where you were in terms of the history between these two. Metal Gear Solid was awesome, a great way to modernize the Metal Gear franchise and still remain true to its past. Fun fact, later on, if you fail to escape the prison twice, Gray Fox will automatically bust you out as if to say, hurry the hell up with this game. You actually don't see or hear from Fox until the very end of the game, where he jumps in to save Snake against Metal Gear Rex and Liquid. Fox had ditched the sword and equipped a laser gun to his arm, with a mask opened, which is one of the most badass looks in history, but you knew full well this was his good guy look. You get one final conversation with Fox during this battle, where Fox comes clean telling you he was Deep Throat all along, but more importantly, revealing that it was him who killed Naomi's parents, and begs Snake to tell her the truth. Fox felt so bad all those years ago that he took care of and raised Naomi like she was his own blood. From there, you get one final present from Deep Throat. Man, that sounds so wrong. Basically Stinger missile ammo. And he jumps in to take on Rex one more time. In the most emotional fight ever, Rex slices off Fox's arm with a laser, but Fox destroyed Rex's radome, which opens up the cockpit and Liquid is exposed. An epic equalizer because a cornered fox is more dangerous than a jackal. Liquid Snake would then absolutely ruin Fox using the power of Rex. You get a scene where Fox is telling you to kill Liquid with a stinger, but Snake hesitates and doesn't want to kill Fox too. Fox tells Snake that after Zanzibar Land that he had been neither truly alive nor truly dead, and that he could finally meet his end with Snake to witness it. As Fox fell to the floor, Liquid tried to kill the ninja once and for all by crushing him under Metal Gear's massive foot, but Fox's exoskeleton meant that this first attempt failed. But with Rex's second stomp, the only man considered worthy of the codename Fox was no more. His last words were directed towards Snake. Nearly 25 years later, and I remember that like it was yesterday. After escaping the Shadow Moses facility, Snake contacted Naomi, informing her that Fox's last message was actually to forget about him and move on with her own life, that he would always love her. Snake decided not to tell her that Fox had killed her parents because he was the only other family Naomi ever had. And that is the story of the legendary cyborg ninja, Gray Fox. An absolute pillar of awesomeness to Metal Gear Solid 1. And actually, the whole damn franchise. Next, I want to mention a character who I couldn't stop contacting over the codec, and one that defines underrated. Nastasha Romanenko, the nuclear specialist. No, not Natasha, that is wrongfully put into the MGS1 English manual. Look, you could go through the entire game without even contacting Nastasha because she was an optional codec-only character and didn't serve any relevance to the plot moving forward, but damn, if you did contact her, you would get your time's worth. She could tell you everything about nukes and other weapons in the game. She is my favorite ASMR in Metal Gear. From her accent to the fact she has a cigarette constantly in her mouth when she's spilling all of the secrets to your weapons.
This is Nastasha Romanenko. A pleasure to work with you, Solid Snake.
But it was quite funny to see that she was the only one of Snake's support team that didn't have a problem with him smoking, although she still cares enough to give him a warning to not do it excessively. Nastasha has a good personality, in a way that she has a dry sense of humor, but it worked. The fact she has a thing for the Stinger missile launcher is another fun reveal, revealing her favorite novel was called Stinger, her favorite cocktail is called Stinger. Yeah, she's a weapons geek altogether. She loves the Stinger. Let's not forget, during this game, she literally worked from her home in LA. And out of all the characters' involvement in the game, Nastasha's fate is the most mysterious, as it's never revealed in the game of Metal Gear Solid 1, but still, she was the one character I could listen to for hours in between objectives. A very fun addition to the game. Now, I've mentioned nothing but incredible characters up until this point, so I'm going to end it on a real piece of crap known as Jim Houseman, because every cast of characters needs that one that you just want to punch in the face. The reason why I'm mentioning this guy is because a lot of fans tend to forget this guy. He's not a major star throughout the games, but his sudden appearance is more impactful than you think. We get the big Jim Houseman speech in the finale of the game. Jim was the United States Secretary of Defense during the Shadow Moses incident, which is a title as horrendously bad as his humanity. He essentially commanded the operation in order to get his hands on Metal Gear Rex's test launch data. He originally plotted to kill everyone in the Shadow Moses incident, with the Fox die in effect, and to keep it all hush-hush, taking the bodies of the soldiers in a quest for power. I'll never forget his shocking appearance in the middle of Campbell's heartwarming speech, taking out Campbell, and that anxiety-powered music kicks in.
After that, there's no turning back.
What? What are you doing? What?
Snake!
Mei Ling, what happened to the Colonel?
I don't believe it.
What happened?
Snake the Colonel!
Roy Campbell has been relieved of duty. This is the Secretary of Defense, Jim Houseman.
We remember him solely for his asshole move to order a nuclear strike on the disposal facility to cover up the incident, ultimately putting Snake, Merrill, and Otacon at risk. Jim Houseman was just as much of a villain as Liquid Snake in this game, in that everyone had their own quest for power in some shape or form. And yeah, I do not like Jim Houseman. But that was the whole point. He was written for that reason and it worked. His timing was horrible for us as we were still dealing with Liquid Snake in the final battle. Houseman added more danger to the finale and added another piece to the puzzle of why the MGS1 cast makes this game a masterpiece, especially in the areas of cinematic drama. It added another layer of stress to the ending of Metal Gear Solid. In every great game or movie involving good guys versus bad guys, there is a big bad boss man. But for every big bad boss man, there's a goddamn badass wingman. But this character isn't just any ordinary right-hand man, and he isn't any ordinary bad guy. In fact, this character has the most depth in the entire franchise, but we'll get into that in another video. Let's keep this to just Metal Gear Solid 1 for now, or we'll be here for 3 straight weeks. This is the one Foxhound enemy of Metal Gear Solid 1 that got away and became one of the biggest pains in the ass in the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise. His name...
Revolver Ocelot.
Looking back on Ocelot in MGS1, he scared me more than Liquid Snake and Psycho Mantis combined. This was the guy in charge of hurting you when you were a prisoner. No, not a prisoner, a hostage, in his words. And was the guy who lets you know Meryl will die if you submit the torture. You look back and realize he tortured the living hell out of the DARPA chief Donald Anderson and the president of ArmsTech Kenneth Baker. This character of Russian descent felt like a heartless cold monster, but was actually very interesting because he knew so much about history and the world. He was the one character I really wanted to learn more about during MGS1. And with all that substance, how does he portray himself? A friggin' cowboy. Spaghetti Western maximum. The fact that Hideo Kojima designed this guy to be an evil gunslinger was a genius idea. It worked because of how confident Ocelot stood, and he could back it up. It was such a cheesy gimmick, but these gimmicks unique to each other were what made MGS1 special, and also all of the franchise. They weren't just cheesy for the sake of it, there was in-depth lore behind each character, and Ocelot was unquestionably the best of the lot. At this point in MGS1, we didn't even know he was the son of the boss. We were more hyped for his shooting ability with that damn revolver, as well as his twisted one-liners. I think I have every quote of Ocelot burned into my mind with how well Patrick Zimmerman executed it behind the scenes. A true classic. The gunfight boss fight with Snake will always be one of the best opening boss fights to a game, and the fact that the same boss fight included Grey Fox taking Ocelot's hand was so rewarding for someone looking for a thrilling encounter. But as mentioned, Ocelot was that one piece that vanished towards the end of the game, setting up a whole new game in Metal Gear Solid 2 after that infamous post-credits Mr. President speech, and creating a whole new depth to the Metal Gear Solid lore. The DARPA chief Donald Anderson and the president of ArmsTech Kenneth Baker both are being held as hostages. That mission objective by Campbell is ingrained into my brain because of how many times I played Metal Gear Solid. And it's a rescue mission that just went pear-shaped and set up the game. Again, even the underrated characters of MGS1 add to why the game is a masterpiece, and it matters. Even to this day, both those guys died right in front of your eyes by an unknown cause at the time. The death of these two sparked the mystery, bringing a twist to what seemed like a straightforward mission objective. But as we know, MGS is nothing but straightforward the further you go into the game. I'll always remember Baker for his torturous bond with Ocelot, how Ocelot just physically hurt him so much that he gave him one of the 2 passwords to start the launch of the nuclear weapon Metal Gear. But when it comes to the DARPA chief, he didn't break. He died from Ocelot's torture, and he never gave the code, which led to Solid Snake being used throughout the whole game to activate Metal Gear, which brings us to Decoy Octopus, honorable mention. The guy we never actually saw in his true form, except in concept art. He was always the guy I wanted to see more of, but I guess we had him in the form of the imposter DARPA chief. Phenomenal twist and played well. So I guess you could say Decoy Octopus is actually the first boss fight, not Revolver Ocelot, albeit in a cutscene form. Now, we've covered the majority of Sniper Wolf's MGS1 involvement in relation to her and Ottocon's bond. However, here we will cover what makes Sniper Wolf stand out individually as one of the best characters in the Metal Gear franchise. First, let's address the elephant in the room. That design, arguably the hottest design in Metal Gear history, right? I will not hear otherwise, so quiet. And let's be honest, they knew exactly what they were doing when they designed her. Exactly, and that's fine. What works for Wolf is not just her seductive looks as an assassin, but also her spine-chilling accent combined with the fact she loves wolves.
Catch you later, handsome.
I mean, her name is so simple, but that's why it works. In fact, all of the code names are simple yet effective, but I think Sniper Wolf sounds the coolest of the bunch, with Vulcan Raven coming in a close second. Now, there's not much to say about Vulcan Raven except Metal Gear Solid 1 needed a roided up brute in a tank who was ready to rip your ears off at any moment, but more importantly, he was a warrior with a code of honor, and that's why he was worthwhile and memorable. Given 2 incredible unique boss fights, this guy was scary as hell chasing you around that cold warehouse, with an M61 Vulcan autocannon, which are typically found on F-16 aircrafts. Like, what the hell is this guy eating for breakfast? Even more importantly, he's not just a brute, he's a mystical, mysterious man who has a connection to the Ravens. Always remember, his spirit will be watching you. In one of the most bizarre death scenes ever, where the Ravens eat him to death after his defeat in combat to Solid Snake. Now, when it comes to Meryl Silverberg, you actually meet her face to face inside the woman's toilets, and if you're fast enough, even with her cheeks out. And this is after Snake only recognizes her based on how her cheeks actually move in an enemy uniform. But this obvious small joke focus on her attractiveness doesn't take away from who she is altogether. She's a badass rookie with a ton of potential at the time and wants to prove herself, especially when in the presence of the legendary Solid Snake. The connection between Snake and Meryl is an emotional one, because Snake gradually warms up to her, and even more so in her disappearance after Sniper Wolf put 3 sniper rifle bullets through her anatomy. And just prior to that, you got a very strange interaction between Meryl and Snake when Psycho Mantis controls her mind, and Snake remains professional in saving her. Now, Meryl was full of energy, and she didn't want to look weak, but when she was captured, none of us wanted her to die, unless we wanted stealth camo. But Meryl's capture made Snake's torture scenes even more emotional and difficult. You felt Snake's pain, and Meryl indirectly contributed to that. The first time playthrough, without knowing anything, made us and Snake feel even more determined to get through that torture. But what's crazy is, if you submit to the torture and Meryl dies, the scene, even though it's not the official ending, it's still so damn sad, seeing Snake break down in tears shortly after Meryl died. Meryl lives, Snake lives, they ride off into the sun, and yeah. Look, Meryl is crucial to Metal Gear Solid 1. Having a rookie there alongside Snake makes the legend of Snake feel even more impressive, and what's cool, she was actually the only one who tagged alongside Snake when you were there in gameplay. And if you tested to see if you could break her neck before the Psycho Mantis battle, you are a sick human being. Colonel Campbell is your primary mission support through the story, and the one guy Snake trusts more than anyone, thus creating a bond from the get-go of the mission. Campbell's connection to Snake was very important, especially for new players of Metal Gear at the time, because it created background and lore there and helped me understand just who these two guys are. And through some twists and turns, Snake starts to doubt Campbell due to classified information being held back, which creates drama between them both. But everything comes full circle when Campbell reveals the full story of why he was on the operation altogether. It was a heartfelt moment where Snake saw the truth, but Paul Iden's excellent performance as the veteran Colonel Campbell will always give me chills of that Shadow Moses infiltration mission. When it comes to Naomi Hunter, even though we've discussed her previously in regards to her connection to Grey Fox, she is still an interesting character that creates further tension and drama in the story despite being miles away. Her background, her motives, as well as part of her actually liking Snake at times, getting surprised at Snake's human side. After playing the game a million times, I always wanted to find out what happened to her at the end of the game, where she was detained, and her words to Snake, "just live," were very impactful, and let's be honest, the scenes with her and Snake in the briefing room will always be amusing. Which brings us to Mei Ling, the most bubbly and, let's be honest, important codec support character to Snake's survival. Creator of the Soliton radar, inventor of the codec, and even saves your game. Extremely important, unless you're speedrunning. But Mei Ling was great in Metal Gear because she changed the pace and the atmosphere. From a stressful battlefield, kicking ass, non-stop serious, Mei Ling gets on the codec and all of a sudden you feel tranquil, you feel rested, you feel human, recovered, and more determined than ever thanks to her Chinese proverbs and quotations. I always felt Mei Ling balanced out the codec cast very well, and the whole game of Metal Gear Solid 1, to be honest, considering you had Campbell, who was the grumpy one, Naomi was the mysterious one that you didn't know if you trusted, and Mei Ling, well, she was just wonderful. Master Miller, what are you doing here? Now, this guy knows it all. He taught you everything you know. There's no other guy Snake's got more respect for, surely. What a great guy to have on the codec support on this top secret operation. He will teach you about the flora and fauna out there. And when it comes to Master Miller...
Snake! Did you like my sunglasses?
Just when you thought Master Miller had your back, think again. The biggest twist in video game history is when Master Miller is actually Liquid Snake. And damn, does Liquid Snake pull it off so well. Even when Liquid Snake impersonates him over the codec, Solid Snake believes Miller. He learns from him, making you realize just how damn impressive Liquid Snake is for knowing all the stuff he knows that's being taught to Solid Snake. Almost making it look like Liquid Snake is far more knowledgeable. But the crazy thing about the twist here is that there was a build-up, which you didn't know at the time until it was too late. Miller starts becoming far more interested in Naomi's backstory, doing his most to expose her lies, but he also becomes very interested in the keycard, almost like too excited, which Snake calls out at one point. But when it's revealed Miller had been dead for a while, you just felt the ultimate betrayal, and there was no one there to help you, except Otacon to get you out of that gassed up room, thankfully. But look, Miller's a legend, but he was never really there. It was all about Liquid Snake. That blonde hair, Cam Clark putting on that British accent that fit Liquid like a glove, and that damn trench coat. This guy personified asshole, but he could back up everything he said, making his death by fox die satisfying because that was the thing that could kill him. He never stopped trying to kill Snake. He would not let you go. What a badass. He was the top of the command, and the way he was introduced and portrayed was done perfectly. You knew you would cross paths with him at some point, and the drawn out suspense worked, which made it one hell of a final battle against him and Rex. And that damn chase scene, beautiful. Liquid Snake was the perfect opposition for Solid Snake. It was like a dance. It was poetic. But the fact Liquid believed he had the inferior genes all along, with his obsession over Big Boss, but all along he had the dominant genes compared to Solid Snake. It was all in the mind. The chemistry between him and Solid was perfect. The characters and writing in MGS1 made me care about what happened to each character, even someone less important to MGS1 like Johnny. Honorable mention, by the way. So don't underestimate Liquid Snake. He will kick your ass with his skills, power, and intelligence. He can shoot down 2 F-16s with a Hind D helicopter, and to be honest, that Hind D was more of an iconic prop to Liquid than Metal Gear Rex. But the great thing about Liquid Snake, like other great villains, is he has his own ambition and goals and believed he was doing the right thing. He wasn't just a flat-out bad guy. It was more complex in the grand scale of the Metal Gear Solid story. All the more reason why the characters of Metal Gear Solid 1 made the game what it was, and why it still matters to this day. Thank you, Hideo Kojima. We're not done yet, because at last we have the final character I want to talk about today. We have the most bizarre, the most mysterious, one of the most eeriest characters I've ever seen in video game history. We have Psycho Mantis.
You like Castlevania, don't you?